Please welcome to the stage the final storyteller of the evening, Chris Hoffmann.
Towards the end of my marriage, I started learning to live with the pain of a hot ice pick up my ass. I mean, it's hard to hold a quiet conversation with somebody with this feeling of this hot ice pick up your ass. So I spent a year going to doctors and urologists and ended up even in this clinic where they stuck this stainless steel scope up my urethra to look in my bladder, never to find anything. And I'll never forget the expression on the office staff's faces as I walked by and them wondering what could have possibly gone on in there that would have elicited such a blood-curdling scream. So I gave up on modern medicine and I went to wellness clinics. And on this bulletin board, I saw this ad for a sacred sexuality workshop. And I figured, well, maybe I can meet somebody there that could help me. So it was sort of like a sunlit meeting room with 20 or so people that would meet every month to find out something about their sexuality. And they would arrange themselves in these concentric circles where everybody's fully clothed. The men sit in the middle, and the women sit on the outside facing each man. And a facilitator would just ask each couple to exchange some words. And it might be something like, say a word that reminds you of this person, or say their name 3 times with the last time like you loved them. And what was funny is she would ring a bell, and the next person would index in front of me, and I'd go through all this judgment on, like, who is this person? And are they from Clackamas, or, And I'd run this story in my head, and I eventually realized that I need to stop this habituated habit. So as I started unplugging that feeling from myself, I started realizing, I'm actually less judgmental of myself. And through this process, I started to realize I'm actually being a lot more bold and improvisational in things that I'm trying. So it was at one of these secret sexuality workshops that I met Magdalena. And it was simply the bell rang and she sat in front of me, and here's this older woman, kind eyes, crazy gray hair, colorful top pulled over some tights, and a big metal necklace, and so they gave us our signed words, and for me it was, I respect your place on this planet. And I said it in a way that, I could feel it. But when she repeated those words back to me, it was like they came out of her kind eyes, and the words just kind of hung there in this beautiful liminal space. And I took those words deep into my heart, and I felt something come alive in me. So after the conference was over, I found her and I went up to her and I said, "Who are you?" She said, "I'm Magdalena." I said, "What do you do?" She goes, "I'm a tantrika." And I realized later, a tantrika can be defined in many ways. It's a sort of a sacred practice of Mahdi binding spirit, or a sacred horror, or I just asked her, I said, "So what's a tantrika do?" She goes, "Oh, I'm sort of like a sex therapist, but I don't do a lot of talking." So I'm like shifting back and forth talking to this woman, and she says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Well, I've got this, hot ice pick up my ass all the time." And she says, is it actually more painful when you ejaculate?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Chris, it's your prostate." I said, what? She goes, "Yeah, men store their anger and their fear and their pain in their prostate. And in my practice, I have this proven technique that's, relieves this pain. So here's my card. You should call me." And there was something about her confidence that got me thinking, so what's a prostate? And I'm thinking I'm pretty sure it's this little walnut-sized gland that's right about where the pain is in my groin here. And okay, it's like this, where it mixes the seminal fluid with sperm, and then, like the more you're fucking, the longer you're fucking, you mix up this big load, and then at some point there's this contraction and this fist that grabs around this gland and launches your glorious seed out into the world. I guess it's kind of important for a dude. Sort of like the fuel rods in a nuclear power plant. So I take this card and I stick it in my wallet, and I drive around for 6 months. And I'm driving home from work like every other day, and I'm thinking to myself, what's a tantrika gonna do? What? I'm trying to imagine, if she can give me a hand job, or, is she gonna like sprinkle, like unicorn fairy dust on my cock, or make me a green smoothie? So, I don't know. So I keep going to wellness clinics, and I, get on some diet, and I almost starve myself on rice and beans trying to purge my system. And eventually I talk to my wife, and she goes like, all right, I don't care, and even after a month, it took me to make an appointment and find my way up the steps to this woman's door. So she opens the door, and, in this little sundress, and we sit in her little parlor for a second and fill out some forms about consent and, releases and stuff, and I give her a lot of cash. And and we end up in her little studio up on the 3rd floor, and I go in, and it's this beautiful room. It's like this colorful futon and all these wispy drapes and candles, and there's like soft music playing. And we sit on the floor and talk for about half an hour, like, why are we here and what do I need? And I explain my situation. She said, yep, you definitely need a therapeutic prostate massage. So she gets up and just motions at this sarong laying on the futon, and she says, I'd like you to take your clothes off, put this sarong on, and lay down face up on the bed with your head on the pillows against the wall. And so she leaves the room, and I gather myself and position myself, and she comes in with a sarong on as well. I can see a little hint of a G-string through the thin fabric, and she climbs up and sits between my widened legs. And she says, all right, Chris, you're the client. I'm in charge. So you're not going to generate anything. You're not going to initiate anything. You're not going to touch me. You don't have to do anything. And I'm like, whoa, awesome. So I just relax, and she starts with her fingertips on my torso, and she runs her fingers up my torso, and then she places each arm on a pillow outstretched on either side, and then she runs her fingers lightly out my arms, and then wisps her hands off my hands like she's casting off some little spirits or some dust. And then she goes down my legs. Same thing, light little touch all the way down my legs, and then wisps her hands off my feet. Ooh. And then she comes back and looks down at my flaccid cock and says, may I touch you there? And I'm like, okay. And she puts her hands into a little bowl of warm oil and gently touches my cock, and her fingers on my cock feels like she's holding this little baby rabbit. And this is a new experience to me. I mean, the last time I thought of, like I had women with my cock, it was like in my 20s when someone was like yanking on it, trying to get it hard. Or even with my wife, I'm like, can't get it together, and I'm like hurriedly trying to, whatever. But this experience was like this languid, dreamy state. I mean, it took me a minute to like find my erection, but once she like had me on this plateau, it was like gorgeous. And I'm in this state of like, I want to know my cock in this state more often. And then she leans forward and she puts her hands around the back of my cock like in prayer. And then she puts her lips within an inch of my cock and like fogging a mirror, starts breathing warm air up and down my cock. And every time her head gets to the head of my cock, I think, God, what it would be like if she just touched her lips to the head of my cock in the state it's in. What would that connection feel like? So I've got my hands on the edge of that futon holding on tight so I don't run my fingers through her hair. Like, I know my place in this. I mean, I'm not gonna disturb what's going on. Whew. So she finally just grabs my cock with both hands, slides both hands down my cock, out across my pelvis, and wisps her hands off to the side, like casting off some little spirits, and says, we're going to move on to the next stage of the treatment now. Please listen to my instructions as I walk you through this process. I want you to breathe in. So I take this deep breath, and on the exhale, she sticks one finger in my ass up to the first knuckle, and the music in the room gets noticeably louder. So I'm like, okay. And she says, breathe. And I take another deep breath, and she decisively inserts her whole finger into my ass and hooks it, and I can feel the first pressure on my prostate. And then she just starts working it. And she's no longer breathing now. She's just matching her body with my motions. And she's just in a little deeper and back out again. And then she all of a sudden climbs up on her knees. And the sarong falls down around her waist. And her breasts are swinging rhythmically with the motions of her body as she puts 3 fingers into me and hooks her fingers and pulls me up like she's putting her back into it. And my ass comes up off that futon, and the feeling of pain starts to sear. And I'm feeling like I'm hyperventilating. Like, is this the wall that I've got to push through, or is there another wall beyond this one? And so this feeling starts to just take over me. And I just find this place where I just lost myself into this pain is just taking over me. And she finally looks me right in the eye and allows me to feel her power. And then I just let go. I let go of all of the things that people think I'm supposed to be. And I let go of all the things I'm supposed to be in the future. And in the totality of who I think I am, I let everything run down her arm and through her body and into the earth. And hanging there on the meat hook, I let out this yell, yeah! And she says, breathe. And I take this breath, and the ice pick is gone. I mean, not the pain is gone, oh, you're going to be better in a few days. I'm talking throw the curtains open the windows, let the summer sun come in. It's fucking gone. Yeah. And I settle into this place of just peace for a minute. And she winds me down just to this calm little place. And I'm all of a sudden feeling really exposed. And she puts her arm, hand on my leg, and she stabilizes me. She just, she knows what's happening. And I look at her and I say, look at this woman, this paid professional, this advocate for my healing, who has taken me through this sensual experience and this transformational encounter. And then she says, you can stay as long as you want. And she leaves. And I slip down into this warm bath. And then I think, God, there's nobody in my body but me. And my breath, even in and out of my lungs, is like little waves washing up on this warm, sandy beach. And I lay there thinking, I'm going, I can't intellectualize my way out of everything. My normal way of feeling myself is to grab a hammer. Give me a hammer and an anvil and I find happiness. But Magdalena gave me another choice. She allowed me to surrender to receive something that I needed. And I'm not talking a blissed out kind of receiving. I'm talking like a therapeutic act of self-preservation. And so I thought too that, to do this kind of work, I have to be willing to die a little bit. And if I'm willing to die, people like Magdalena will find me if I'm open to receiving them. And as I walked down the stairs and I said goodbye at the door, I thanked her again for how inspired I was. And she ceremoniously shined a flashlight down a path I'd never seen before and gave me the courage to start walking.